Hello people, I am Jaby KOAY, joined by ACHARA KIRK.
Hello.
We're discussing KGF starring Yash. It's written and directed by Prashanth Neel, and it also stars Srinidhi Shetty and Ramya Krishnan. We got to watch this movie just a few hours ago. This edit is going to be more loose in the interest of getting out the review sooner, and so for those of you who are used to our fast-paced editing, I apologize in advance. We're going to start off with IMDb here. It says, a period drama narrates the 1700-year-old history of oppressed waging wars against their oppressors. Set in the early 80s, KGF, the first chapter, centers the protagonist who leads a battle against the oppressors. I didn't really get all of that information from the movie.
Yeah, I certainly didn't get the 1700-year-old history part, but
Yeah.
the early 80s bit, I was like, on board with.
Right. So I want to start off with talking about the things I liked, and then later on I'll get into things that I didn't like quite as much. So first and foremost, I just got to say that Yash is incredible.
Yeah.
Like, he has a charisma about him that just radiates on the screen. He does a really good job of being that hero archetype in the film. He's almost like a Superman character. He's like a superhero in a way, with the way the film portrays him. He was kicking ass and taking names. You bought him as that dude.
Yeah.
Thanks to his acting, thanks to the way the film was made. He just did a great job.
Yeah, he sold it.
Right. The beard and the hair, it was
Yeah.
very stylistic and cool. Like, I liked his movement. I liked how he switched between being the cool badass and then being that guy who's like a romantic lead with, you know, trying to pursue this
Yeah.
girl, and then just, you know, the way he handled the dialogue. I thought it was all really cool. He had a mysteriousness about him. The way he showed empathy for certain characters in the film, I believed him. You know, there wasn't a single moment in the film where I didn't buy what he was doing.
Yeah.
Now, that's, again, a combination of both his ability as an actor and the director working with him to achieve that performance. The other actors in the film, I thought all did great
Yeah.
in supporting him and supporting him as, you know, the lead in, you know, whether the villains, whether they were the bystanders, you know, the collateral damage
Right.
in the film. Like, I thought that the cast was just pretty good, you know?
Yeah.
There wasn't a single actor where I was like, ugh. But again, like, we don't speak the language, so I was running into this with the Zero review the other day where I was praising Anushka Sharma and people are like, no, blah, blah, blah. I still stand by my statement, but this is coming from someone who doesn't speak an Indian language. That being said, I appreciated the acting in the film. The story itself, I thought, was pretty interesting. Just like the vying for power thing, it's almost like a Greek play or something,
Yeah,
or Game
it
of
kind
Thrones.
of is. It very much is like a Greek tragedy. Our protagonist comes from tragedy, or any sort of superhero origin story, it seems. Like, they always have something horrible happen to them.
In a way, this almost reminds me of a modern-day Bahubali.
Yes.
I know that Bahubali is more of a
Mythology.
that's exactly.
Yeah.
It's almost more like mythology in how epic it is and the kind of fantasy elements that are brought in there. And you sort of see that here. Like I said, you know, Yash is more like a superhero in
Yes.
this movie, even though he doesn't wear a cape. The Bahubali aspect is like the mom. You know, he doesn't have his mom, right? Like
she dies when he's very young.
Right.
And she, like, really inspires his life. And I really loved that relationship in the movie, actually, because it's the driving force. And once again, like in Aquaman, where it was a lot about family,
Right.
I loved how they tied in this whole, like, mother-son relationship aspect, because once again, it's something everyone can hook into.
I think most people can. Anyway,
Yeah.
most people
have mothers.
Right, most people have moms that care about them.
Exactly. So it's something that's, like, readily identifiable and is emotional. So once, you know, you just get hooked in emotionally and away you go.
I think they did a good job of establishing that relationship
Yeah.
with him and his mom, and how important she was to him, and like the impact that she had on his life. Throughout the film, they show
Yeah.
these little moments where she's endowing him with philosophical ideas and virtues that he carries with him for the rest of his life.
Yeah.
And it also gives him reason to put women at least moms, on a pedestal.
Yeah.
He says in the film, like, they are stronger than soldiers.
Yeah.
And I thought that was a very interesting way to put it. I like the idea, again, of these people vying for power and Yash being kind of in the middle of all this and doing his fight to basically fulfill the promise to his mother. And what ends up happening along the way, this other kind of job that he ends up taking on as a result of his adventure. Like now he becomes a man of the people.
Right.
Which reminds me of a few other South Indian films I've seen where you have this gangster who becomes... how did you phrase it in the car ride?
Oh, a gangster with a heart of gold.
Right, exactly. I think that's a great way to phrase it because we've seen that before with Rajnikanth films, and so that's what I was sort of reminded of. And I actually dig it. I thought that it organically showed how he starts out, as this innocent kid, ends up becoming someone on the streets who's fighting for power, and then becomes a man of the people. I could see that arc. It was very nicely done. The music was another thing I really, really appreciated in the movie. The soundtrack, the score, throughout the film was just awesome. This is a score that I would actually be interested in purchasing and listening to. That's how much I enjoyed it. It reminded me of like Harry Gregson Williams or something like that. Harry Gregson Williams did all the Metal Gear Solid video games, and he did several big picture movies. Even the first song, I don't remember the other lyrical songs as much. I remember liking the Item Number Girl, woman, excuse me, but I don't remember if I liked the song or not. It didn't leave like a strong impression on me.
I think I liked all of the soundtrack songs. Like when I heard them, I was like, oh, they're nice. They tell the story. They help move it along.
I remember liking at least the first one and one more possibly. The part where I take issue with the film, and I don't know how much influence Prashant Neel had on this, is the editing. The editing, I felt like, did a disservice to the movie for me. I know that people in the theater were super happy. Like, there were people coming out of the theater being like, oh, it was amazing. And so I know that there is probably some sort of cultural limitation here or language barrier thing that's kind of in the way of my enjoyment. Because, like, stylistically, I really dig the movie for the most part, and I love the shots, like the DOP, the director of photography, did a fantastic job. Like every shot was just beautiful. The framing, just aesthetically, I was like, wow. Like even though it's a lot of dark colors, like very gray and black, and sepia.
Yeah, it felt muted.
It was, even though it was muted, it just had this cool contrast and this pop to it, and the framing. I really, really appreciated the framing in the film, and I was like, okay, I just wish I could appreciate it a little bit longer before it jumps to the next thing.
Yeah.
For being a 3-hour film, it felt like a 3-hour movie trailer. Because of just in terms of the editing style, like it kept cutting every second, and then there was a lot of going to black over and over again. And particularly in the last 20 minutes of the movie, I was like, okay, just let me appreciate what's happening here. I feel like this could have been 2 movies. So I'm like, this literally could have been 4 films. The way that this is being done, it would have been like 4 2-hour movies, and I would be down to watch all 4 of them if it was done just a little bit slower pace so I can appreciate what's going on. I still think you can accomplish all the things that Prashant Neel was trying to accomplish with this movie in terms of his epic nature and the stylized fighting and the story. Like I think all of that can still be accomplished, and just let the editing breathe a little bit more.
Yeah.
From almost the start of the movie, every 2 seconds it's cutting, and I was like, gosh, is this? Yeah, this is it the whole time, and so it's like I can't blink.
Well, I think in the beginning, with his background stuff, I appreciated that the movie did move at a clip, because then we get to the heart of the story.
Yes.
In a way, I did appreciate that it moved fast, but then when you get to the meat and bones of the story, you kind of want it to linger just a little bit longer, so you get a chance to appreciate everything that's going on and a moment to breathe and catch up with all the different characters that are coming into play here.
Yeah, I mean, the style, in terms of the editing style, it almost reminds me of a Kevin Hart stand-up, like his more recent stand-up, because like if you watch his earlier stand-up, it's a nice pace and it breathes and you get to laugh with him. Whereas his later stand-up, it feels like he's it's a race to the end of the movie. It's just like it's not giving you a chance to even appreciate a single shot, because it's just trying to get to the credits as fast as possible over the course of 3 hours. And so when I said like the beginning, it's fast paced and it was alarming for me, I didn't mean the very opening where like you're talking about, because I agree with you. It kind of going through at a clip through the narrative explanation at the top, that's fine. But then when the movie gets going, it was still moving at that same pace.
Right,
And
yeah.
I was like, oh my gosh, like I can't keep up with this. And then the fight scenes was where it was like really apparent just how aggressively fast the editing was. And I was like, I can't appreciate anything happening right now because it's moving so fast. Like there are shots on screen for 2 frames and then
Yeah.
it moves on to the next shot and I'm like, oh man, this is that in that regard, it was very disappointing for me because I wanted to be able to appreciate the shots more. I wanted to be able to appreciate the action more, everything happening. And like there was one shot I recall when he's in the truck and I don't think he knows where he is, and the camera starts out on him and backs up, and you see all the people in the truck, and I think he's trying to look out. That shot lasted a little bit. I'm like, yeah, more of that, please. Like, give me more of those shots so I can appreciate what's going on, and maybe dial back the stylization a little bit more so I can appreciate it more, so you can appreciate what's happening, and deal with that drama with the characters a little bit more.
Right. I
You know?
did appreciate that they chose to tell the story in this kind of like, I guess, what would you say, like with a
Non-linear.
non-linear
Yeah.
with the narrator.
Yes.
I liked that because
Almost like Princess Bride.
exactly, it did
Yeah.
remind me of the Princess Bride in that regard because every now and then you'd come back to where they're talking and then he's like, oh wait, did I skip ahead? Oh, let me just go back. And so
I think
that was cool.
I think this director, I mean, I could be wrong, but I do think he appreciates certain American films and certain American directors because, or not even just American, but just like things that are not from India, because there was definite references to Bruce Lee, and specifically there was a reference to Enter the Dragon, which is an American film. There's a scene where O'Hara in Enter the Dragon is losing to Bruce Lee, so he clashes 2 beer bottles together to try to fight Bruce Lee, and then Bruce Lee just demolishes him. It was straight from Enter the Dragon, and even the style, like I did appreciate when he like uses the dude to brush his hair back. Like that whole bit was very like just slick. Like he was just that was badass. But all of it felt like a Bruce Lee scene where he's kind of like he's a little bit drunk.
Yeah, no, he totally was.
Yeah, and I mean, there's no Bruce Lee fight scene where he's a little bit drunk, but there is a Jean-Claude Van Damme movie where he's a little bit drunk. There's Jackie Chan films called Drunken Master where he's a little bit drunk and fighting people, but it felt closer to Jean-Claude Van Damme because no one can touch. Like if you go back and watch the Jean-Claude Van Damme movies from the '80s, no one can touch him. Like he's that badass. The only person who was able to beat him up is Dolph Lundgren. I appreciate the nods that the director was doing. I appreciate just the framing, the style, in terms of just like how it was shot.
Yeah.
I appreciate the music. I appreciate how badass Yash was. And so because of how the editing was, I had a hard time keeping up with some of the story so much that I had to have a conversation with ACHARA in the car going, okay, so I think this is what happened. And we like literally went through like the whole film so that I made sure that I understood what was going on.
Yeah.
And I really appreciate the setup of the story. Like I just dig the premise. I dig the setting. I dig what they're trying to do here. It just the editing really hindered my ability to fully appreciate this film. And so because it impeded my ability so much that I have to go with like a 3.5 out of 5 for this.
That is exactly my rating.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I would have given it like a 4.5 otherwise, because I think that this has a lot going for it, but the editing is just like it made it such a difficult experience for me that I mean I wish I was enjoying it like the people around me, but I just wasn't, and that's just me being straight with you guys.
I thought it was a good movie. I enjoyed it. I thought Yash was great.
Yeah.
And it was beautiful, but there were some problems.
Yes.
Hopefully will get fixed in the next one.
Right. It's impossible to fully state a score on this film without watching both of them, but I have a feeling the second one is going to be edited in a similar manner, unless they go totally Kill Bill Volume 2 on this, where it feels like a different movie in terms of the pacing and the style. I suspect that the editing style is going to be the same in Part 2, so that's still going to be a problem for me in Chapter 2, but you know, as far as the story goes, I'm hoping that there's a lot more to be discovered here, and it's very justified why there's a Chapter 2. So I'm looking forward to it. You guys, let us know your thoughts in the comments below. I know that most of you watching this love the film, and you're probably really upset that I didn't give it a 5 out of 5, and I apologize to you guys. I just want to be real with you. So check out ACHARA KIRK on the social media. Subscribe if you haven't already. Check out our other reactions, reviews, and short films. I'm Jaby KOAY. This is
ACHARA KIRK.
Peace out.